Hello, everybody. It's John Johnston, CornNation, and I'm here with some survey results. I recently asked two questions in a weekly survey, one about NIL, name, image, and likeness, and the other about the transfer portal. And the first question I asked was, do you feel NIL, name, image, and likeness, college athletes being paid, has had a positive or negative effect on college football? And here are the results, and I'm honestly pleasantly surprised with these, where 70% of Nebraska fans think that NIL has had a positive effect on college football. Now, the next one was about the transfer portal. Again, do you feel the transfer portal has had a positive or negative effect on college football? And again, I'm surprised at the results. 70% of Nebraska fans feel that the transfer portal has had a positive effect on college football. And I'm surprised by both of these results because both of them contradict what I've seen online about college football. I mean, most of the comments at CornNation when I asked these questions were very positive for both of these. And the comments I got on YouTube were mostly negative, and I'd say on Facebook the comments are mostly negative, that people don't like either of these things. So we're going to have a discussion about both the transfer portal and NIL. And I look at the transfer portal. For me personally, I look at it and I'll share a philosophy. Listen, I'm an older guy, obviously. I'm 61, and everybody has this attitude about old people that they don't like change. Well, everyone hates change. And I can say this because I work in IT, and if I say the word upgrade to anyone, they all groan and get angry. Everyone hates change. Maybe old people hate it more because we've gotten accustomed to things being done a certain way and all of a sudden it's change. But I ask myself the question, is this bad or is it just change? And I look at the transfer portal and I think, it's just change. It's change in something that's been going on for a while. Players had the ability to transfer after their seasons were over and things like that. It's just that now they can transfer multiple times, and we've seen that. The NCAA recently lost a lawsuit or had some kind of legal action against them where their ability to restrict multiple transfers, in other words, a person transferring multiple times throughout their eligibility, they can't do that anymore. The NCAA can't restrict that stuff anymore. So the transfer portal is kind of looks like, well, people can do what they want willy-nilly. Okay, is that bad? Because if you're just a regular student at a college, you can leave and do whatever you want. I guess I look at it and I realize that we kind of become, we like our football players. You get a guy and you go, wow, I really like Chubba Purdy, and all of a sudden he's gone off to another school. He's not wearing your uniform anymore. I know Seinfeld had that joke years ago about we're just rooting for the uniform. Sometimes it feels like that. But I think college football players, there's a certain level of, attachment to it. You actually like them. And then they're gone. They're off. Maybe they're playing for Texas or Iowa, and that would certainly be, oh my God, they've gone to the dark side, right? So I can understand why people feel it's very negative because they get accustomed to having a team this way, or they see a good player that's performing well for their team, and suddenly they're gone. And it creates a level of instability that I don't think we like. But I do think that it's given players more control over their own futures. I mean, their coaches get fired, and they shouldn't have to stay on a team just because of some misguided conception of loyalty or that they made a commitment. When their coaches can do whatever they want, they can transfer, they can get new jobs, they can be fired. I think it's given the athletes, student athletes, we use that phrase, more control over their future, and I think that's a good thing. And then the next thing is NIL, the ability for athletes to get paid. Right now there are billions of dollars flowing into college football and billions of dollars flowing into college sports in general. We've seen over the last year that volleyball has had increased viewership, which leads to the possibility that that may become more of a revenue sport across the board for more people than just Nebraska. We've seen the Caitlin Clark effect, or one of our favorite phrases, that more people are paying attention to women's basketball. And those are good things, I think, for the sports. But you've seen massive crap tons of money flow into schools because of that, TV contracts. And that's led to massive coach salaries and massive coach buyouts. You know, Nebraska paid $40 million to a guy who ultimately became the worst coach in Nebraska football history. And we actually paid him an extra $7.5 million just to go away early. That's how much money is out there. And we're building Taj Mahal facilities all over the place. That war's been going on for a number of years. Now, is that fair? I think a lot of people will go, well, if it makes good athletes come to our school and make our team win, then it's a good thing. But some of these facilities is a little over the top. And if that money can be going to athletes, I don't see where there's a problem with that. What I really don't understand is the resentment that some of us have toward players getting paid. An 18-year-old kid making $2 million a year to be a college quarterback, you know, if they can earn it, what's so bad about that? I do think that the evaluations you largely see online are complete bullshit. If you go to On3, they have these little evaluations for every player out there, I think. And from everything I've understood, those are completely over the top. And most players are not making that much money. What I've heard from a lot of people is that NIL is working out where you're not paying individual athletes massive salaries, but you are paying a base to the team, which I think is a good idea. In other words, everybody gets $30,000. And that keeps some of the locker room discrepancies between a guy getting crap tons of money and a guy getting nothing, and keeps that from becoming complete turmoil. So why do we resent this? What is it about amateurism that we think should be part of college sports? This has been around, you know, I've done the History Channel stuff. I'm doing history videos. This concept has been around since the beginning of the sport in 1869. It was around for the Olympics way back forever. And that model completely changed. And I think the Olympics, you know, you've seen athletes and seen those sports increase in how good they are. I don't know about viewership, but you get the idea. It was an outdated model that went away for the Olympics, and it's probably time for it to go away for college football and college athletics itself. One of the fears we had when NIL first started was that the big schools would take everything and leave the smaller schools that didn't have enough money behind. And I don't know if that's true. I think it's true for the group of five. What you're seeing the group of five turn into is basically a developmental league for coaches and players, but it's kind of been that way for a while anyway, hasn't it? Maybe it's just more pronounced or it's more visible. But what we're finding is maybe this is leveling the playing field across the board. Big programs like Alabama or Georgia or Nebraska, you can't pay everyone. In other words, those teams have loaded up on 4- and 5-star players. Well, if every one of those 5-star players wants $5 million a year or $8 million a year, you can't come up with the money to pay all of them, so some of them are going to trickle out to other programs. And maybe, as we see as this time goes on, that actually levels the playing field more than it's been in the past. And that's not a bad thing, because college football has certainly been top-heavy. Now, there are bad things about NIL, and the number one bad thing is there's no control. There's no regulations. Nobody knows what these contracts look like publicly. There's no public disclosure. That's, I don't think, good. And the reason why it isn't good is because from what we've heard, or what I've heard, there's a lot of programs out there that aren't necessarily paying their athletes what they've been told they've been getting paid. They're supposed to be paid. In other words, they say, well, we'll give you $500,000, and then the athlete finds out later, well, they got 1/2 of that money, or they got 1/3 of that money because the money was full of big promises. We all make big promises, don't we? And then people didn't follow through. So there needs to be some level of control, and I think that we're going to see over the next few years, this is going to evolve in just a completely different model. because the NCAA doing business as it's done for decades, it's over with. So if you hate college football and the idea that it's becoming more professional, well, you're probably going to hate the future that's coming, because even the NCAA has proposed recently that schools take over paying the athletes. And they're going to pay them, like, I think the proposal was pay everybody $30,000 a year, and that would level the playing field between the men's and women's sports. And if you like college football only, you probably think that's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think women's sports should be there, supported, even if football's paying for it, as long as it's attached to universities, because, you know, we need more educated people than we need less. And if it provides an opportunity for people to go to college who wouldn't otherwise have it, I don't see that as a bad thing either. Now, we're going to see, probably in the next few years, we're going to see a couple things happen. Number one, there's massive lawsuits against the NCAA for billions of dollars in liabilities. So that's why they've made the proposals for schools taking over paying the athletes themselves. So the NCAA wants to survive. I don't think it'll survive. This is a different subject for a different video, but I think we're also going to see in the next few years that athletes are going to be ruled as employees, and that's going to bring a whole new can of worms all by itself. Now, the good news is they collectively bargain if they're employees, which means that if they're collectively bargaining, that we'll see publicly what those NIL contracts start looking like, because that's why you see NFL contracts. And you know what payers are getting paid because there's collective bargaining in place. The other thing that I keep bringing up, and probably nobody wants to hear about, is colleges are going to experience an enrollment cliff. It's already kind of happening in some places. And this thing is, it's just basically we don't have a population of young people to support all the colleges and universities we have across the nation. And you're going to see them go bankrupt. You're probably not going to see schools like Nebraska or Minnesota or Big Ten schools go bankrupt, but you're going to see, quite frankly, a lot of bankruptcy across smaller schools all over the nation. And that's something that schools, I think, are preparing for now because they know it's coming. And how that affects college athletics is going to be its own horrible world. So, though that's the discussion topics, I know this isn't as popular as like Dylan Raiola coming to Nebraska, but it still is massive issues that shape college sports. And I think they're important. They're important enough for me to bring up, important enough to discuss, and probably not that interesting to 90% of you, but it's here anyway. I'm looking forward to your thoughts and have a discussion. And thank you for watching if you made it this far. And Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays, whatever you do to celebrate this time of year. Take care of yourselves. Go Big Red.